The atmosphere was already charged before Zhang Linghe even took those few steps, with cameras flashing, people turning their attention toward him, and the unmistakable energy that surrounds a major fashion appearance. Everything looked polished from a distance: the lights, the luxury setting, the carefully styled outfits, the composed expressions, and the steady rhythm of people moving around the venue. Yet in the middle of all that perfection came a tiny moment that suddenly changed the mood. Zhang Linghe appeared to lose his balance while walking, creating an instant wave of surprise among those watching. It was only a brief movement, but sometimes the smallest moments are the ones people remember most. In an environment where celebrities are expected to appear completely confident and controlled, even the slightest unexpected step can make everyone watching hold their breath. And what made this moment especially interesting was the reaction surrounding him, particularly the concern fans perceived from Tian Xiwei. Whether it was simply a natural instinct to react when someone nearby suddenly appears unsteady, or whether there was something deeper in that glance and change of expression, fans immediately began discussing the moment. Suddenly, what had been another glamorous appearance became a scene filled with suspense, emotion, and questions. Zhang Linghe continued moving, but the atmosphere seemed different after that brief stumble. For a moment, attention shifted away from the fashion, the cameras, and the glamorous surroundings and towards something much more human. He was no longer simply the perfectly composed celebrity walking through an important event. He was someone who had just experienced an unexpected moment in front of countless eyes. That is precisely why fans reacted so strongly. People who have followed him for a long time know how carefully public appearances are usually handled. Every movement can become a photograph, every expression can become a headline, and every unexpected gesture can be replayed and analyzed within minutes. So when his walk suddenly looked slightly unstable, fans naturally became concerned. Some viewers immediately wondered whether he had simply misstepped. Others focused on the people around him and how quickly the atmosphere seemed to change. The moment was short, but its emotional impact lasted much longer because it reminded everyone that behind the carefully prepared image of a celebrity is an ordinary human being who can have an unexpected moment just like anyone else. And then came the part that captured even more attention. Tian Xiwei was also associated with the moment through the reactions fans noticed around her. The way people interpreted her expression became a major part of the discussion, with viewers wondering whether she had noticed what happened and whether concern crossed her face for even a second. It is important not to turn a brief reaction into a confirmed story, because only the people directly involved would know exactly what they were thinking. But that uncertainty is also what made the moment so fascinating. Fans began looking closely at every visible detail, asking whether her attention shifted toward Zhang Linghe, whether her expression changed, and whether she appeared concerned. In an environment filled with staged photographs and carefully planned appearances, an unscripted reaction can feel incredibly powerful. It does not need a dramatic gesture or a long conversation. Sometimes a quick look is enough to make people wonder what was happening behind the scenes. The beauty of moments like this is that they interrupt the polished rhythm of celebrity appearances. Before the unexpected movement, everything could have seemed perfectly predictable. Zhang Linghe was there, the cameras were ready, the fashion atmosphere was unmistakable, and everyone knew what they were there to capture. But the instant his balance appeared uncertain, the entire visual story changed. Suddenly, people were not looking at the details of his outfit or the luxury surroundings. They were watching his movement, waiting to see whether he was all right and whether he would continue normally. That tiny pause in everyone's attention created a kind of silence inside the noise. Even when hundreds of cameras are flashing, there can be a moment where everyone seems to be thinking the same thing: is he okay? Fortunately, the moment appeared brief, and Zhang Linghe continued rather than allowing it to completely disrupt his appearance. That itself became part of the story. There is something compelling about watching a public figure encounter an unexpected situation and calmly move forward. It does not require exaggerated drama. In fact, the lack of drama can make it more memorable. He did not need to turn the moment into something bigger. He simply continued, and that simple response allowed the event to regain its rhythm. Yet fans had already noticed. Once viewers become emotionally invested in someone, even a tiny change in their movement can trigger concern. A person who might appear perfectly fine to a casual observer can look vulnerable for just 1 second to someone who has followed their career closely. That is why the reaction from fans became almost as important as the moment itself. Social media communities are built around shared observation. One person notices something, another person sees it from a different angle, someone else pauses the footage, and suddenly a tiny moment becomes a conversation involving thousands of people. Some fans focused on Zhang Linghe himself, expressing relief that the moment passed quickly. Others became fascinated by Tian Xiwei's apparent reaction and wondered whether she had instinctively noticed his movement. Still others reminded everyone that a brief facial expression cannot prove what someone is thinking. And somewhere between all those reactions was the emotional heart of the moment. People cared because they did not want anything to happen to him. There is also something particularly striking about seeing concern appear in a glamorous setting. Luxury fashion events are designed around confidence, beauty, precision, and control. Every detail is carefully considered. Celebrities arrive looking composed, photographers capture carefully timed images, and the entire environment seems almost unreal. But a moment of imbalance cuts through that perfection. It reminds everyone that no matter how glamorous the surroundings are, real human reactions can never be completely controlled. A sudden step, an unexpected movement, a quick glance from someone nearby, these are the details that make a public appearance feel real. For fans of Zhang Linghe and Tian Xiwei, that realism carries an additional emotional weight because their interactions have repeatedly attracted attention. Even when there is no confirmed romantic meaning behind a glance or gesture, fans naturally become curious whenever the two appear within the same environment. Their shared moments are often examined closely, especially when one appears to react to the other. But curiosity should remain curiosity. A glance can be concern, surprise, simple awareness, or something else entirely. The only responsible way to describe such a moment is to acknowledge what viewers can see without pretending to know what happened inside someone's mind. And perhaps that uncertainty is exactly why this particular scene became so compelling. Imagine the moment from the perspective of someone standing nearby. The surroundings are busy, people are moving, cameras are firing, and attention is constantly shifting. Then suddenly, the person walking in front of you appears to misstep. Instinct takes over before thought has time to catch up. Your eyes move toward them. You check whether they recovered. You continue watching for another moment. It can happen in seconds. That kind of natural reaction does not need a dramatic explanation. It is simply what people often do when they notice someone might have lost their balance. If Tian Xiwei did indeed react with concern, fans saw that as a touching reminder of how quickly human instinct can appear even in the middle of a highly controlled public event. And perhaps the most interesting part is what happened afterward. Zhang Linghe's walk continued, the event continued, the cameras continued, and the glamorous atmosphere returned. But for viewers watching the footage later, those few seconds remained impossible to ignore. They became the part everyone wanted to replay. Not because something enormous happened, but because something unexpected happened. There was vulnerability inside a setting built around perfection. There was uncertainty inside an event built around confidence. And there was a reaction that made fans wonder whether someone nearby had immediately noticed. This is also why celebrity moments can become emotionally powerful without containing any dramatic dialogue. There are no long speeches here, no carefully written lines, no explanation of what anyone was feeling. There is simply movement, reaction, and interpretation. The camera captures a fraction of a second, and viewers build an entire emotional conversation around it. Sometimes that can lead to exaggerated rumors, so it is worth remembering that visual moments have limits. We can observe what happened on screen, but we cannot confidently declare someone's private feelings based on a single expression. What we can say is that the moment caught attention, created concern, and became meaningful to the people watching. For Zhang Linghe, the incident also highlighted something fans often appreciate about him: the ability to continue through an unexpected situation without making it the center of attention. Public life requires a strange kind of resilience. A celebrity can be watched from every angle, and even ordinary moments can become public discussion. A simple misstep that most people would forget within seconds can become a clip shared repeatedly. Yet the person experiencing that moment still has to keep moving. That contrast is fascinating. The audience sees the unexpected moment as something extraordinary, while for the person involved, it may simply have been a brief interruption in an otherwise normal walk. And then there is Tian Xiwei's place in the story, which became emotional for fans because concern is one of those expressions that people instinctively recognize. If someone nearby suddenly appears unstable, the natural response is often to look. That does not automatically reveal a deep relationship, and it should not be treated as proof of anything romantic. But it can still be a warm human moment. A concerned glance can communicate awareness without saying a single word. That is why viewers may have found themselves returning to the footage again and again, not necessarily searching for confirmation of a relationship, but simply appreciating the possibility of a genuine reaction amid a carefully organized event. The Gucci setting makes the contrast even stronger. Everything surrounding him represented luxury and sophistication, yet the moment fans remember most was not necessarily a designer detail. It was a tiny human movement. The lights may have been bright, the surroundings may have been elegant, and the photographs may have been carefully captured, but the most emotionally resonant image was the possibility that someone noticed another person having a difficult second and instinctively became attentive. That kind of moment can feel more memorable than a perfectly posed photograph because it cannot be completely manufactured. As the footage continues, the tension gradually disappears. Zhang Linghe remains on his feet and keeps moving, and the moment passes. But the questions remain in the minds of viewers. Was it simply an awkward step? Was the surface uneven? Was the movement caused by footwear, the environment, or something completely ordinary? Did Tian Xiwei actually notice? Was her expression concern, surprise, or simply a natural reaction to movement happening nearby? Without direct confirmation, nobody outside the moment can know for certain. And that is where responsible curiosity matters. The most interesting stories do not always require us to invent answers. Sometimes the mystery itself is enough. What makes this scene so memorable is not the possibility that something terrible happened, because there is no reason to assume that. What makes it memorable is how quickly a normal moment can become emotionally charged when people genuinely care about the people they are watching. Fans were not simply watching a celebrity walk. They were watching someone they admire encounter an unexpected second, and their instinctive response was concern. That emotional connection is powerful. It explains why a moment lasting only a few seconds can inspire hours of discussion. There is something almost cinematic about the contrast, the flashing cameras, the elegant venue, Zhang Linghe moving through the scene, the sudden uncertainty in his step, the attention shifting toward him, and then the moment passing as quickly as it arrived. No one needed to announce that something had happened. The visual itself created the suspense. For a brief instant, everyone watching had the same question. Then, almost immediately, normality returned. Yet that tiny interruption became the memory people carried away. And perhaps that is the deeper reason fans reacted so emotionally. Glamour can be photographed, but genuine concern feels different. Fashion can be planned, but instinct cannot always be planned. A pose can be repeated, but a spontaneous reaction belongs to a particular second and can never be recreated in exactly the same way. That is what gives moments like this their special quality. They feel less like a performance and more like a glimpse into the ordinary human side of people who spend much of their lives under extraordinary attention. Zhang Linghe's brief stumble therefore became more than a question of whether he almost fell. It became a reminder of how intensely public every movement can become for a celebrity. A normal human moment was transformed into a story because thousands of people were watching. And Tian Xiwei's perceived concern added another emotional layer because fans are naturally drawn to moments where one person appears to notice another person's vulnerability. Whether that concern carried any deeper meaning remains unknown, and it is better to leave that question open rather than turning speculation into fact. Still, there is no denying the warmth many viewers felt while watching the moment. The concern itself was enough. The idea that someone nearby might have noticed and cared, even for a brief second, created an emotional contrast with the overwhelming world of cameras and celebrity attention. In that instant, the focus was not on status, fame, or luxury. It was simply about making sure someone was all right. And perhaps that is the image that stays behind after all the flashing lights disappear. Not the perfectly arranged photographs, not the polished surroundings, and not the carefully prepared atmosphere, but Zhang Linghe recovering his balance and continuing forward while fans watched closely. Somewhere nearby, Tian Xiwei's reaction became another small piece of the moment, leaving viewers wondering whether she had noticed the same thing they had. No dramatic confirmation arrived. No explanation was necessary. The moment simply happened, and because it felt unexpectedly human, people remembered it. Sometimes the most unforgettable celebrity moments are not the ones that are planned. They are the seconds that escape planning, the tiny interruptions that reveal how quickly attention can shift, how instinctive concern can appear, and how deeply fans can connect with people they admire. This Gucci appearance may have been designed to celebrate fashion and glamour, but for many viewers, the scene became memorable for an entirely different reason. A brief uncertain step reminded everyone that even the most polished public figures can have ordinary moments, and a perceived concerned reaction nearby made those seconds feel even more meaningful. So when viewers look back at that moment, the real question may not be whether Zhang Linghe actually came close to falling. The more interesting question is why such a tiny movement affected so many people. Perhaps it is because behind every glamorous photograph is a real person. Behind every confident walk is a human being capable of stumbling. Behind every public appearance are people watching closely, caring, wondering, and reacting. And in the middle of all that attention, a simple glance can become unforgettable. The lights eventually move elsewhere. The cameras capture other moments. The crowd continues. The fashion event moves forward. Yet those few seconds remain suspended in memory, precisely because they were not perfect. They were unexpected. They were vulnerable. They were human. And if Tian Xiwei's expression truly reflected concern, then perhaps that was the sweetest detail of all. Not because it proves anything beyond that moment, but because it showed how quickly one person can notice another person's unexpected difficulty. Zhang Linghe recovered, continued walking, and allowed the event to move on. But fans did not move on quite so quickly. They kept watching, replaying, discussing, and wondering. That is the strange power of a fleeting moment in the world of celebrity culture. Something can happen in less than a few seconds, yet the emotions surrounding it can continue long afterward. A single step can create suspense. A single glance can create curiosity. And a brief recovery can turn concern into relief. In the end, what remains is not a confirmed dramatic incident, but a memorable little scene surrounded by questions and emotion. Zhang Linghe's unexpected movement caught attention, fans became concerned, and Tian Xiwei's perceived reaction added another layer that viewers could not help noticing. Whether the moment was nothing more than a simple misstep or something caused by the environment, one thing is certain: it reminded people that even inside the glamorous world of Gucci, where everything seems perfectly controlled, real life can interrupt the picture at any moment. And maybe that is why this moment felt so special. It did not need a grand announcement. It did not need an elaborate explanation. It simply needed a few seconds of uncertainty, a quick recovery, and the possibility of a concerned glance. Sometimes that is enough to make an ordinary moment feel extraordinary. The cameras were there to capture fashion, but they ended up capturing something much more relatable, a human being having an unexpected second, another person possibly noticing, and thousands of viewers reacting with genuine concern. Long after the event was over and the lights had faded, that brief moment continued to live in the minds of fans because it represented something they could understand immediately. Everyone knows what it feels like to have an unexpected moment. Everyone understands the instinct to look when someone nearby seems unsteady. And everyone understands the relief that comes when the moment passes without serious consequence. That universal feeling is what transformed a tiny movement into such an emotionally memorable scene. Perhaps that is the real reason people could not stop talking about it. Not because something enormous happened, but because something small happened in front of everyone. A glamorous appearance suddenly became personal. A confident walk suddenly became uncertain for a heartbeat. A nearby reaction suddenly became meaningful. And then, just as quickly, everything continued. The world of celebrity often feels distant, almost unreal. But moments like this bring that